Mark Trammell here with the Center for American Liberty. I'm joined today by Billboard Chris. Chris, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and it's good to finally meet you. Welcome.
Great to meet you. Thank you for having me. We're having a lot of wins lately,
Yeah.
partly thanks to your organization, of course.
So Chris, you broke huge news this week on X. I still want to call it Twitter. Deep down inside, I still want to call it Twitter. But you broke huge news relating to Kaiser and its gender mutilation of children. So what's going on?
Yeah, so one of their employees reached out to me and let me know of an email that had been sent to all of the staff internally, where Kaiser said that across all of their institutions across the nation that they were going to stop all surgical treatments on children under the age of 19 years old. So not just children, including the 18-year-olds. This, of course, is in keeping with Trump's executive order, which dictated that they were going to pull all federal funding, research grants, etc., from any institution that was giving kids puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and performing these surgeries. So this was great in that they're stopping the surgeries. I don't know how they expect to continue giving kids puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, because that's part of this executive order as well. So I actually had a question for you, if you perhaps know more that's going on behind the scenes, because we see a lot of other hospitals just this week. Connecticut Children's Hospital, Yale, University of Chicago, they put a stop to this. Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, the most busy gender clinic in the nation, also put a stop to this, including the hormonal treatments. So I don't know why Kaiser is just doing the surgeries, because that's not going to cut it.
No, it's not going to cut it. I think you're right. I think this is a progression of I hate using the word treatment, because it's really you're not advancing a good or helping these kids. So calling it treatment seems rather generous, but it seems odd that they would stop at surgery but allow for chemical castration and for sterilization to continue and to continue for minors. I think the underlying issue, right, is informed consent. These kids are 13, 12 years old. They can't consent to these procedures, whether they're chemical or surgical. And so drawing this arbitrary line seems like a political decision based on, I think, prevailing opinions that have shifted on this issue. And I think they've shifted on this issue because there's this tremendous exposition of what's really going on, right? I think these lawsuits, I look at someone like Chloe Cole. We've been able to represent Chloe for a couple of years now in her lawsuit against Kaiser, and her voice has been illuminating, I think, to the country. Really educating people on what's really going on in these doctors' offices, the lies that these young people are told. And of course, these young people are being told one thing, these parents are being told something else, and they're being told separately. It's very, I think, confusing for families. These families are relying on people who are being told are world-renowned experts, but they're not peddling truths. And so, yeah, to your point, I think it's really, it feels like an arbitrary distinction. And my concern is what Kaiser says and what Kaiser does may be very different, right? So they'll publicly say, we're not going to perform these surgeries on minors during the Trump administration. And I think that's an important point here, right? This is a pause. My question is, what are they going to be doing behind closed doors and just simply not telling the world about?
Right. They term this as a pause. All of these institutions stopping it term it as a pause. And what that really means is until the next Democrat is elected president, because of course they will then undo the executive order, because Democrats still to this day insist on dying on this hill. And the radicals in the party really control the entire party. So from my perspective, my job is to create awareness. We just need to keep educating millions of people at the grassroots level, so they put pressure on these politicians. And eventually, as we have already seen in some states, some Democrat politicians are even jumping ship because of this issue. Sean Theory comes to mind from Texas. She left the Democrat Party just over this issue. But another thing that's going on recently, there was an FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, held a conference a couple of weeks ago. And I know one thing they're looking into now is deceptive trade practices, because what these gender clinics do much of the time is they don't code it for insurance purposes as a child with gender dysphoria who's now getting puberty blockers, they get around this by saying that she has an endocrine disorder. And that justifies the prescription of testosterone or whatever. So I don't know how much of that is going on. I know it's going on, and I'm sure it will be going on more now that a lot of these states can't do this practice. But perhaps you have more insight on that for me, because I'd like to learn a little bit more about that as well.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I think there are consumer issues here for sure. I mean, I'm baffled how there haven't been consumer fraud lawsuits that have been filed at this point. I mean, years ago, there was a counselor who was sued under New Jersey's Consumer Fraud Act. And he was sued because the court took judicial notice that you are born gay or lesbian and cannot change. And so the theory of the lawsuit, and the SPLC actually brought this lawsuit, the theory of the lawsuit was that you can't change your sexual orientation. It's not fluid. And if you are promising clients that some sort of therapy can create some sort of change, and again, the court took judicial notice that change is not possible, then what you're promising is fraudulent. And that was a successful case for the SPLC in New Jersey. Now, of course, that's under New Jersey state law. That might not apply. That same theory probably wouldn't carry water in other states. But my concern here is, aside from what happened in New Jersey years ago, it is objectively true that a man cannot become a woman and a woman cannot become a man. And so for these gender clinics, these huge hospital systems, to be promising these kids that if you take Lupron, if you amputate your chest, that you will become the other sex, that's fraudulent. They're selling them lies. And so I think when we look at this, we're really at the tip of the spear. I think back to a few years ago when our founder, Harmeet Dillon, went on Fox News with Laura Ingraham to introduce Chloe Cole's lawsuit to the world. And Laura had a comment. She said, this is like big tobacco litigation, right? We're at the tip of the spear here. And I think we're still at that tip of the spear here a few years in. We're filing these lawsuits. We're representing several detransitioners in medical negligence lawsuits against specific physicians and specific hospitals. But I don't think that's the only form of litigation that can bring about the good and the change that we're looking for. I think the work that you're doing with grassroots and educating the public is huge, because I think what's happening is that young people who have been through these horrific situations, who have suffered with some form of dysphoria, who have been lied to by physicians, who've been peddled drugs, and in some circumstances been surgically mutilated by these physicians. They're hearing that they are not alone, that these stories have happened to others as well. They're here, you have parents who are hearing that this is happening in their schools where kids are being socially transitioned. It wasn't just their kids, it's other kids as well. And it's like, by exposing what's going on, you're bringing about a social movement, right? That because people know that they're not alone, they're more willing to come forward and to fight back, because they know they have people with them who have their back, who are going to fight side by side. And so I'm really excited by this pause by Kaiser. It's not a home run, if I can use a sports analogy, win, but every day that Kaiser and every day that LA Children's and Stanford and these major medical hospitals, every day they're not abusing a child, is a win. But what we cannot do, and I think we would agree on this, what we cannot do is take our foot off the gas. What we have to do is take advantage of this opportunity, this pause, and we have to be more aggressive in litigation than we ever have been. We have to be more aggressive and spreading the word about what's going on than we ever have been, because these are pauses. We want to make sure that when the political pendulum swings, that these pauses are turned into permanent changes.
Yes, 100%. And the pendulum will swing at some point here. But I think more than any other issue in all of these revolutionary ideologies that have been going on for decades, we're pushing back and winning on this issue more than any other. And of course, one of the biggest reasons for that, and something that will put the final nail in the coffin, are the lawsuits. So I'm so thankful for what you guys are doing. I ran into Clementine one day randomly at UCLA. I'd only been there for about 5 minutes, and she walked up to me and she told me this story of how she was sexually abused as a child at 7 years old. She wasn't looking forward to growing into a woman. This, to her school counselor at the age of 12, meant that she was really a boy. And they socially transitioned her at school. The parents took her to CHLA, Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, where they saw Johanna Olsen Kennedy, where Clementine was separated from her parents, prescribed puberty blockers on her first appointment at the age of 12. Her parents were told they could have a dead daughter or a live son. At 13, Olsen Kennedy pushed her to get testosterone. At 14, the doctor, Johanna Olsen Kennedy, pushed her to get a double mastectomy. The testosterone caused psychosis. She went off it at 17. I think the final straw for Clementine and her parents was Johanna Olsen Kennedy wanted her to get a hysterectomy, which they're doing to teenage girls. They're cutting out their ovaries as well. That's called an oophorectomy. And now she's finally detransitioned, and all she ever needed was time and love to grow up and to grow out of this. But she wasn't given that choice because as a 12-year-old, she did what she was told she was meant to believe, was that she was trans, that she was some sort of special human being with this entirely new identity, and she got nothing but love for it, when the actual loving thing to do is to tell her the truth, that she's a girl and she's beautiful just as she is. Life's not always easy, but we don't go changing the bodies of people who are having mental difficulties and stresses and anxieties and disorders and depression just because they want this done at the age of 12. I mean, a child clearly cannot understand what they're signing up for. And hopefully with your lawsuits, you can help put an end to this in California. So thank you so much.
Chris, I've really enjoyed talking with you today. And I'm so grateful for the work you're doing, for your strong voice. And is there anything, we have a little audience here at the Center for American Liberty. Is there anything you would leave our audience with today?
Yeah, it's the same line I say all the time. There is no such thing as a transgender child. They're called girls and boys. And the positive message we should be sending, the affirming message, is that they're beautiful just as they are. No drugs or scalpels needed. This entire ideology is based on nothing but lies. It's going to take a little longer to deal with the overarching ideology, but this medical malpractice, this child abuse, is something I've always believed we can put a stop to very quickly. And we are. And I think it's happening more quickly than anyone expected, because when people learn what's going on and when parents learn what's going on, especially, you don't want to get between a mama bear, a papa bear, and their cubs. And so together, all the different angles that we're attacking this, we're winning. We're going to keep winning. So just keep the hammer down.
That's really well said. Thanks again, Chris. And for anyone watching online, you can keep up with our lawsuits at the Center for American Liberty by going to our website, www.libertycenter.org. Thanks again, Chris.
Thanks, Mark.